Hello and welcome to the Everything Delivery podcast. This episode is a digital pulse for the week ending Friday the 15th of September. Digital Pulse is our fortnightly newscast where we highlight some of the more interesting things that have happened in the last few weeks in the tech sector. You can find the latest episodes, as usual, at everything.delivery/digital pulse. And if you happen to be watching this, you should be able to see that in the address bar to the right. This episode is sponsored by Nearform. So Nearform has over 10 years experience in remote delivery, empowering clients to succeed in the digital world through application modernization, data, design, DevOps and product. You can and you should find out more at nearform.com. I'm Dan Close and I'm here as usual with my co-host Luke Lanziani. Now I say as usual, right, but we've been away. We had the summer hiatus for effectively all of August because, holidays and various other exciting things going on. So good to see you again.
Yeah, welcome back, Dan, and welcome back to myself. Has been some interesting summer going away with the kids. What have you done? Anything special?
So I managed to take 1 week off and spend time with my kids, but other than that, it's been the usual, sickness,
Yeah, that's
mental health issues. It's the same. It's the same old thing for me.
Let's not joke about the mental health issues.
I'm not joking about mental health. I'm very, very serious about that.
The kids part, it was the same for me, right? It's always the same. You're trying to have a fun week, and one of the kids gets sick, and then you have to again take care of them.
I like touring all sorts of accident and emergency departments throughout the country. It's a lot of fun.
But while we were off and we were enjoying our sick kids, stuff kept happening in the industry, didn't it?
I know. Seems like a good place to jump off, right? And the first thing. So we'll talk about very little today, I think, just as the first time back. We can get ourselves back into the groove.
Yeah, let's start slowly.
Just a couple of points.
Yes.
So let's begin. So Terraform. I've heard of it. There's something going on with Terraform. Tell me more, please.
So, if you're not aware of these, something has happened in August 10, right after we got off. As I say, right, you go off and there you go, something happens. You cannot even take 1 week off. So what has happened? HashiCorp has followed similar steps to other companies in the industries and has done a change on the licensing of their products. What I mean by that, I mean the HashiCorp on August went from Mozilla public license to a business source license, or BSL.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, all products from HashiCorp were open source, were released as Mozilla public license V2, right? That is a very permissive license. You can pretty much do everything you want with the source code. Even resell the product. Maybe there is a little bit of nuance there. Maybe you cannot actually resell the exact product. You have to add value. I don't remember what the Mozilla public license says, but they went into the business source license that is more strict about that, right? So if you're actually profiting from their code, then you cannot use it. And again, I'm explaining this like this, but don't trust me, right? I'm not a licensed expert. Go and read it yourself.
You're not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer. And we go into that in a moment, actually, right? We discuss about the impact of these. So as you can see in the screen, what happened is that they did the announcement as a blog post, and as usual, they underestimated the impact that this would have, right? Many people started to ask, okay, but what about now, right? What is the impact? Because again, we're not lawyers. We assume that we know the licensing, but we don't understand possibly all the repercussions. They stated that this change, and this is in the page that I'm sharing, and it's going to be on the show notes. So if you want to know more, please go and read the show notes. They also they had to create a list of FAQ, right, to answer all the questions that people had after the announcement.
Sure, yeah.
And one of that is, why is HashiCorp making the change? And they go into yes, we really believe on the open source, right? We believe in the value of openly sharing source code, enabling practitioners to solve their problems, building communities and creating transparency. But at the same time, they've seen that certain companies were abusing, or at least that's what the blog post, I think, said, right? In this case, they say that shifting the license, they can better manage commercial uses of our open source code and continue to invest in our thriving community and practitioner. It's
I
interesting.
mean, is this a case where they see other people making money with their products? So, company A has a product that uses Terraform, it's making a decent amount of money, and they're looking at it and going, well, fundamentally, we're powering that thing that you're making money off, but we're making no money off it. So, yeah, we don't like that.
I think
I don't know.
I think so. At the same time, there is a lot of discussion that has been going in the community saying how much those other companies were actually threatening HashiCorp, right? HashiCorp, at least from the outside, right? We never know. But from the outside, it seems quite big, right? And many other commenters had the objection, not even the objection, they expressed their opinion saying probably HashiCorp could have gone differently and tried to add values to their products and make it them better, so they will win no matter what, right? And after all, they still had the control of the source code. They still owned the source code in a matter of who was approving the PRs, who was accepting features, and also in the past we have seen that they weren't so open to always accept changes. Their own right to do so. I'm not judging them for that, but the point is that they were still managing and controlling what was happening there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then they go into what is the implication for the end user, what is the implication for the integration partners, and most of the times they say there is not real implication for most of those, right? Is that true? I mean, is that true? Meaning that, how do you know if that is true? Would you trust HashiCorp?
As much as you trust anyone. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. To be brutally honest, this is not what I do in my day to day, and this requires people with a different skill set to.
That's it, right? That's all.
Me to sit down, examine, and work out what the heck this really means.
They say all non-production users are permitted. All production users are allowed, other than hosting or embedding the software in an offering competitive with HashiCorp commercial product, hosted or self-managed. So there is all of that, right? Now let's not spend too much time on this, because as we say, we want to keep it short. You get the gist, right? You get the gist. They were in a state where maybe they realized that there were competing products that were benefiting from HashiCorp products and maybe stealing some of their business, right? And they were like, okay, we need to make a change here.
I mean, effectively, people woke up in the morning and suddenly they had a new problem they weren't expecting to experience, which is now I need to involve my legal team and review whether or not we can continue forwards.
And that is exactly where I was going, right? So I mean, it's not even just Terraform, right? It's Vault, is all the HashiCorp power, is all the products that HashiCorp is producing, is releasing, right? It's console, it's et cetera. Now,
this is stuff that's widely used, right? I mean, it's not; these are big boys. I mean, I would say almost every platform that I've worked on has had some element of HashiCorp in the last few years. Whether or not, I mean, typically Vault, typically Terraform. I'm sure there's other stuff in there too, but they are everywhere.
And we know that, right? We know because in our line of business, we actually see many platforms there. They at least use Terraform. Terraform is definitely the most widely used, I would say, right? Is it the de facto standard for infrastructure as code? So what happened after that? What happened is that suddenly, I would say, a new website was born called OpenTF.org and the OpenTF manifesto. So again, I'm sharing the page here, right? If you don't see the page OpenTF.org, you can go there and read by yourself, or you can go to the show notes and find it. And the OpenTF manifesto stated that, okay, changing the license is not good. We want to try to at least push, maybe push is the right word, right? For HashiCorp to change, to switch the Terraform license back to open source, right? They were inviting that, and they asked people to sign this request, right? To see that there was a lot of people asking for that. If you scroll down, you will see that there are a lot of, there are some numbers, 144 companies. Is it a lot?
Yeah.
It's quite a good number, I would say, right?
I mean, it's not bad, but that's our previous point with the number of people who are actually using Terraform, and its ubiquity. Is it I don't know, but yeah, okay. I mean, 140 is not a small number.
No, the individuals, and again, I wouldn't maybe count the individuals because 700 individuals it can actually be a small number if you think about it. 10 projects and 1 foundations. I'm curious to know who's the foundation, but we can look at that later maybe. I didn't see the foundation the first time I came here, so that's interesting. But the idea is that we're gonna ask you, HashiCorp, to at least revert the license for Terraform. If you don't do it, and this is when I say push, we're gonna fork it. Right? That was the thing. You don't change it, we're gonna fork the repo, right? And and that's something that we have seen happening in pretty much every occurrences of these change or license in the past years, right? And maybe not all of them.
I mean, I mean, it's happened, I guess, a few times. I mean, it's happened for all sorts of reasons. Communities get upset about something, and they threaten to fork it. I mean, so I think was it Rust and Crablang? There was some sort of fallout there, so they forked the language in some sort of threat in response to. I think it was something to do with marketing or usage of a logo, I think. But this one seems to have been, of all the threats so far, this seems to be the one that has actually got momentum.
Yeah, seems so, right? Now, got momentum. We don't know how much that is true. We know that there are certain companies that pledged full-time employees to contribute for at least 5 years, right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, I think more. But at the end, they actually released something, say we have 14 full-time employees that are going to contribute to OpenTF. There was a real effort from the start to fork this thing. Although, again, is it going to be enough? That would be my question, right? It's as everything.
Yeah, no, it's true. People move on, change jobs, and will they continue contributing to this kind of thing if they leave? Will the people who come and replace them be any good? And one of the things that I think pops out to me from the list that you showed is TerraGrunt. So when I first started picking up Terraform, book that I was using to learn Terraform was written by somebody at TerraGrunt. I can't remember the name of the person. The shame of me. But it does seem like at least there are some folks who have already invested a vast amount of their time in this space already. It's not like it's a bunch of unknowns coming in and doing this stuff, which maybe bodes well for it. I don't know. I'm trying to be cheerful about this.
Yeah, but the other thing is that they are not planning to keep it from themselves. So they say our fallback plan in case Terraform will not change is to fork Terraform into a foundation, right? So if you think about that, that's probably an interesting move. It's like we're not gonna fork it and maintain it ourselves. We're gonna fork it and then give it to the Linux and the Linux Foundation and the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, right? Nice. And see if someone else wants to contribute that. Because if you do that, then one criticism was like, who's going to tell us that you won't change the license yourself, right? Once the OpenTF gets famous enough. And the foundation should protect from that. The foundation should actually put money into the project. The foundation should give more exposure to the project, and so more people may be able to contribute. So, and the foundation is backed by big companies. So there is also that.
Yeah, and it's stability, right? It's all about that stability.
Yes.
Which is good.
In September 5th, and I'm going to try to move fast so I can leave some space for you. In September 5th, the OpenTS fork became available. And so right now, there is real fork that is open source in GitHub that you can go and use. So they started publishing. There's the whole roadmap, if you want, of what happened, right? They published the OpenTF manifesto. They waited for HashiCorp response, and they didn't respond by August 25th. So they started working on OpenTF fork. They're applying to join the Linux Foundation, so that has already happened, right? They're already applied to join the Linux Foundation. There is a community Slack for discussions. Again, we're gonna leave all these links in the blog post.
Nice.
They prepared the OpenTF repo for collaboration. They released the OpenTF repo. We are here now. We can also add the link to the OpenTF. Why are we sharing these again? If you are an organization that is using Terraform, we know how painful, especially if you're a big organization, right? We know how painful may be for you to migrate out of Terraform. At the same time, you may want to evaluate if the change of license is going to impact you. So now you are at a point where you have to pick your road, right?
Thank you, Poison.
Yes. So either you go and talk to your legal team and discuss, okay, what do we do with Terraform now? Is this license compliant to whatever we were going to do with it, right?
Yep. Does it work for us?
Yes. Or you embark into the migration of the OpenTF and you trust the fact that OpenTF is going to become the new Terraform.
Practice standard, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's going to be onboarded by the foundation. There are going to be enough supporter. Or maybe you're the enlightened one and you want to contribute. So we're also sharing this because if you want to contribute, again, we are pro open source. Our t-shirts say that, right? Open source is art. Maybe you want to help OpenTF. Who knows, right? So yeah, pick your poison, but try to make a decision because it's important that you understand where you're going.
Yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of the large organisations for this license change. It's it's a problem that people aren't going to want to wake up to. So I wonder if this might be a bit of a foot gun too.
We'll
see. Give it a few months.
I think that in general the licenses discussion is going to happen no matter what because you're probably using another product from HashiCorp. So the Terraform one may be one discussion, but how about the rest? Although Terraform 1 is the one that you probably modify the most, right? You may write in module yourself and so on. Cool. And with this, I stop my monologue. Thank you. Monologue. And we switch to something on your realm. That is
my turn. Yeah. So this is, I mean, unsurprisingly, right? This is LLMs, and this is now a week old, so it's probably already massively out of date. It's very hard to tell with the LLM stuff. So this is the news that Falcon 180B, so this is a 180 billion parameter model, trained on 3.5 trillion tokens, has been released, and it has soared to the top of the Hugging Face leaderboards. Sorry. And you know it's beating Llama 2. It's the largest openly available language model that we have at the moment. And you know it's state of the art. It's all very exciting. Really, what kind of business impact is it going to have? Probably not too much at the moment because it is so large. It costs so much money to run. It's an absolute beast. It performs as well as GPT-3 Turbo, I think is what they're currently saying. Maybe GPT-4 is going to soon be in the sights of something open source that could be moderately interesting. Like the previous models, so Falcon 180B permits commercial usage. So if you have the money to go and spin this up and run it yourself, you probably can. So it gives you full control of your infrastructure, the controlling the training, and kind of maintaining ownership of all of the stuff that goes into this model, which is pretty cool. This stuff just keeps moving, man. Like every week there is something new and exciting. Bigger models with more data that perform better through to smaller models built on highly specialized data sets that you can deploy and run on your own infrastructure for cheap, or using something like an OpenLLM. It's all pretty cool. As I say at the moment, not so much value for your business, but something to be very much aware of, that these kind of open models are, as people were saying 7 months ago, moving at pace and kind of reducing the gap between the open source and the kind of massively commercial models, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh, it's definitely cool.
Alongside, I mean, this stuff is not going away, right? I think in whether or not it's chatbots, whether or not it's your co-pilots helping you write your code or do your analytics or whatever else, this stuff is going to stay around. The kind of hand holding they provide across all levels of skill is super useful. But that said, right, there's another kind of interesting thing going on that kind of is tangentially related to this. So last year, folks like Airbyte and a few others were starting to talk about how Rust was going to pop up and it was going to to become a bigger part of kind of data engineering ecosystem. And I'm a bit of a Rust fanboy.
Are you?
I kind of like the language. I suck at it. Yeah, just a little bit. I've got my little crap around here somewhere. I quite like it. It's nice and fast, and I like the fact that once the code compiles, it's going to run. Whereas with Python, often, I've written my code, I'm going to run it, and then I have to sit there and, despite the fact I've written tests, it still breaks. Obviously, it takes me much less time. Now, something similar seems to be happening in the machine learning and large language model space. So there are a couple of things going on. So Hugging Face have got something called Candle coming out, or it's not coming out, is out. And so this is the minimalist minimalist ML framework written in Rust. And then there's also something called Burn, which is another Rust project, which is around building neural nets. And it's just a whole bunch of these kind of little things kind of stepping away from Python a bit. And I find it moderately interesting. I don't think that Python is going to be replaced by Rust, at least not yet. And we've already seen Scala come in with things like Spark, and then PySpark kind of caught up. And then you've got the kind of the long-term lingua franca of data, which is SQL, which is, everyone's been saying it's going to be dead anytime soon, but each time it seems to come back even stronger. I just think this is moderately interesting. That once again, Rust is starting to pop up in the data and the ML space.
Right. Are those
just a kind of an interesting observation?
Are those the two projects that you just mentioned? Candle,
Candle, yeah, and Burn, and I mean there are others, right? And I can provide a longer list in the show notes.
So what would be the value of doing this in Rust other than what you just said, that when you compile it, you fairly sure that runs, right? So, it's not 100% true. That it's not 100% true, but it's definitely, there's more checking than Python. But yeah,
it's more check than Python, which doesn't take much. I mean, so it's smaller and faster, right? So as much as I love Python, we know that Python is largely a wrapper for other tools, but that kind of wrapper is still slow, right? And things like, people are still writing ML stuff, whether or not it's not right, it's wrong, using bare Python as opposed to NumPy and things like this. And then you've got like the BLAS and the pack, which is why we've got nice wrappers around those that allow us to do the kind of ML stuff fast. But fundamentally, Python is not a super efficient language, right? I mean, it's like bad Rust will still be faster than Python.
Okay.
It's not that much of a jump to move from one to the other, I think. I mean, there's this kind of old-ish joke that Python is the second best language for everything, which I quite like. I'm of the opinion that, it's not going to displace Python, but it can certainly be used to augment it, to certainly speed up certain things in certain areas. Like if you have some data pipeline and it's, say, a little bit slow, rather than using pandas, you might want to go and explore something like polars, which we know is super, super fast.
So something that always intrigued me, and then maybe after this we close the episode, is would you mix the two things? Would you be able to mix Python and Rust and optimize these low bits and keep Python for the okay bits to keep the interface easier?
Yeah, so foreign function interfacing, right? So yes, there's a really good way of doing this with Rust and Python. So there's a thing called Pyo3, I think it's called. I'll put a link in the show notes, and this is a great way to hop between your Python and your Rust, or get stuff done. Again, the way that you do it, you have to apply a little bit more thought into it. So when you're pushing down compute into Rust, you obviously want to pass as much as you can in one sitting, as opposed to continuously bouncing across the boundary. But again, once you've got that one piece of code, it's a great way to go.
So one thing
certainly easier than using C.
One thing that I always liked of Python is how easy it is to experiment, right? To throw things out, test it, and iterate, right? And that, as part of the iteration, that's when you actually can, put a little bit of Rust in there and say, okay, I'm iterating, this thing is almost working, is almost creating what I want. Now I fix it, I make it stable, and then I make it fast.
Right?
So
It
that's
sounds
where
like an
my
Erlang.
that's where my
So
head
this,
was going.
yeah, so I think it's a Joe Erlang, I think, Joe Erlang, Joe Armstrong quote around making things pretty, and by making them pretty, they often become fast. But so a lot of the stuff that we do in Python is done in notebooks. There are Rust notebooks now as well. Again, we can link that in the show notes. So you can do the similar sort of experimentation. And I mean, to your point, it is not as fast as doing it in Python, right? You don't have to fight with types 90% of the time. You don't have a borrow checker that you've got to fight with. But as you say, if you have that pattern down in Python, you can then translate it when you need to into Rust and make it fast. Obviously, as you become more exposed to things like Rust, it becomes easier to work in. So you're no longer fighting the borrow checker, or having all these problems. It's much like any language, and so you can make that gradual shift over, and you might find that you no longer actually brave the Python stuff. You go straight to Rust.
I think the most challenging thing is the learning curve for Rust, right? I've tried Rust, I've used it a little bit, but there is a lot of syntax, extra syntax that you have to remember, that you have to understand, that you have to absorb. I'm not saying that you cannot do it, right? There are other languages like that. I've done Erlang, I've done OCaml, right? They're also using completely different syntax from the rest of what we know. Even Ruby adds new symbols that are not the one that we're used to, right? But again, with Rust, there is a lot of that. So when you're in an organization that you have data scientists that are maybe writing their Python, now ask them to migrate to Rust may be a little bit of a challenge, right? That's when we have to be good at explaining the trade-offs, why you're doing that, right? What are the advantages, and then slowly and gradually maybe migrating people into the new mindset.
It's a really good point. But I think the way that I kind of respond to that is that typically with the data scientists, they write a piece of code which is largely going to be, sorry data scientists if you're listening, is going to be written by someone else anyway, because again, I'm sorry data scientists, but often the code that you write isn't super wonderful. So this is why we have an entire field of kind of ML engineers who go about taking these wonderful models, these very smart people create, and then optimizing them to run in some other way, shape, or form. So that kind of happens already. As I say, I don't think the world is going to fundamentally change overnight. I just think it's interesting that this is once again popping up, a second time in not so many months.
Okay.
Interesting rather than business value. That's where I'd leave that.
And with that, again, we're going to repeat. You're going to find all the links in the show note. We're going to close the episode here. Thank you for listening if you're still here with us, and welcome back from holidays if you had any. This is the Digital Pools episode airing the 15th of September. I'm Luca. I'm here with Dan. And you're going to find us in the usual links that we share every single time. Everything.delivery is our website. There's going to be a Digital Pools in Spotify and the other streaming platform, and on YouTube at youtube.com/@everythingdelivery. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next time. Bye.
See you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.